I spoke to someone very recently. In the course of this interaction, um, they stated the ineffectiveness of having multiple people that are not some major source, such as an established news group, speak about an issue over and over again, for the sake of regurgitation and believing that their subscribers would be tired of it. My argument was that if you have an issue that you're trying to raise awareness of, regardless of if I speak about it for 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 30, you're still doing something to say, hey, this is something you need to worry about, this is important. And if people don't feel the need to go and watch that, they can go and watch something else. And it still did not dawn on them as to this making sense. Now, I had voiced aggravation with there being 300 million people in the United States, 80, a little bit over 80% of those, it's either 83 or 87, using the internet, which would imply that they would be affected by this. Obviously, we can get into a debate about whether or not it depends on how much they use it, but if you use the internet, you're going to see this when you go online after the FCC's vote that is expected to repeal net neutrality. So, in speaking with them, they stated, oh, well, this one source, or if you look up the title of this, you're going to get videos with hundreds of views, or thousands of views, or 100,000 views. And I told them, if that's really the case, then it still is less than a percentage point of people who need to worry about this being worried about it. Like, out of 300 million Americans, which who's to say that's not even just people from the U.S. But let's play devil's advocate here. That those are all people from the U.S. viewing. So out of 100,000 Americans watching a video on average, which I don't know how this was being calculated, but out of that number, it's suddenly okay for millions of their fellow inhabitants of the states to not be worried. And really apply this argument for anything else. If 15% of people know what 2 plus 2 is the other, what, 7, however many percentage going to be okay for not knowing it? And yes, one will make an argument, oh, you're bad at math. Well, I didn't say I wasn't. But if the other 85% going to be vindicated because a smaller but sizable portion of the population knows what 2 plus 2 is? I get tired of basic things being neglected. For example, I can wager that if you were to go up and ask children who are of a small age, 2, 3, 4, who Trump is or who the president is, they'll tell you the correct answer. That's something that we as a society feel is important to educate people from a very young age on. Now, they might not be able to tell you what he's about or his policies or his backstory, but at core value, they can tell you this person is just recently been in office, they're the current president, that this is their name, the very basic outline of what's going on. And that's something that just is name recognition galore. It's all over the place. Trump's name is recognized in every state, in every city, in every county. I can guarantee that if a person goes into a sizable number of cities, counties, various districts across the U.S. and starts asking about, do you think net neutrality is important? You're going to get people who will say no, because if they identify with being Republican, they're going to say that's some Democratic talking point. They'll dismiss it off the bat. And I've already, before anyone says I'm playing both sides, I'm not with either side. Or they'll claim to not, they'll say they don't know what it is. So they'll either be against it, say they know what it is, or answer in the affirmative of yes, this is something that needs to be protected. And the point I'm trying to make here is that even if a person knows what something is, a lot of times we get this idea in our heads. A lot of times we get this idea in our head that if people. Yeah, that got messed up. So I'm bothered by the idea that because a large chunk of individuals speak about something, if I talk about it, it's automatically, even if it is regurgitation, it shouldn't be heard. I've had people come in here, and I even brought this point up to them, say that they did not know about this issue before I kept discussing it and talking about it, and now suddenly it's wrong to try and reach out to as many people as possible. I'm really supposed to just assume that out of however many subscribers or people might regularly watch this, they just automatically are checking out those more popular channels. I have no idea who the majority of people that are subscribed to me are subscribed to. That's not something I'm really interested in knowing. But what I was interested in doing was trying to advocate for something I saw the importance in. And it's mind-boggling to just go on here and say, hey, let's talk about this, let me explain this, let me give some type of reason for why this matters. And have people just who can try and help this out throw their hands up and go no, then get upset with you after you say this is why this should be the case, then accuse you of being upset with them. And it's an endless cycle of just sticking your nose up and saying I won't do this, and it shouldn't be that way. I get bothered not necessarily by people not knowing about this. I'm bothered by people who are cognizant of it not trying to make any attempt toward making other people aware. And it's one thing to say, oh, this person's probably not going to try anything. But I know a majority of people are taking this seriously, have signed those petitions, have called up their Congress members. There is a respectable playing field of people who see this as a matter of importance. I'm not harping on them at all. My problem is that it's still not a majority, and it seems if that's just ignored. Again, going off of this person's logic, if 5% of people know how to do their taxes, the other 95% not knowing how to do their taxes are vindicated. Oh, it's okay. We have people who know how to do it, so why do the other people need to know how to do it? We need to also, in addition to stopping this catastrophe in a couple of days, introduce something in these schools that says you need to know what net neutrality is, you need to know what the internet guidelines are, just something that stops this cycle of washing your hands with something once you've passed a class or only stumbling upon it years later. You know, I'm so just bugged by some of the curriculum choices I've seen and the refusal to go over things at a young age. Because I think people, if they're introduced to something as quickly as possible, can grasp it easier than they would have at a later age. I'm not saying it's impossible to learn anything once someone is older, but it still is better to know in advance than to just keep putting it off. I mean, there are so many things, you know, all these historical events, for example, that I try to familiarize myself with. They've been around much longer than I've been. And even though I can say that I feel I've learned these things or have some basic comprehension, I still feel I would have been better off being introduced to most of those things at some younger age, or from childhood or youth, or whichever term would be applicable. And it didn't happen, and I've tried to rectify it by going out and learning about these things and speaking about them and keeping them on my mind. But it's still a thing that I would want corrected. See, there's a lot of times people will say, oh, you think you're better than others. No, I think the generation that is coming up, along with all other generations from this point forward, can be better than I or anyone of my own age group or category. And when you seek to better off those in the future, you want to advocate for things that will affect them long term, such as their education, such as having schools that don't cost boatloads of money that most of us don't own. Okay, and then a person, I can't say your name, I'm sorry. Can we recover after the Ajit Pai and Trump era? I'd like to believe so. The worst they can do, because even if when it happens, Pai and Trump are not going to be in their positions forever. So while it does sound grim and that we do have possibly 3 to 7 years of this left, it still will eventually go back to the way it was before. And that's not exactly something I find thrilling to report, but there is a small slither of hope, even though it is pretty terrible. So, thank you for watching. I'll have something else about the same topic tomorrow. Another topic, definitely. And remember, if you believe that an issue is okay or people not knowing something is okay because 5% or 10 or 20 know it, that's a problem. Especially if it's something that is important to their daily life. There are many people who just log on the computer every day, many people who live their lives through the internet, and I'm saying you have to take it seriously for the sake of not having this happen again. This situation right now does not need to occur again. And people don't seem to get it, and it's sad. But I am glad about the hundreds of thousands that have tried to take the step and just dismantling the system that's about to be in place, or at least responding to it. I'm very appreciative of them. So, thank you for watching. Have a good day.